Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Foundera webinar. We will begin in a few seconds. We're still waiting for others to join this webinar. In the meantime, we will start the introductory words from our side. Yes, I see there are more people logging in. We have a strong competition with the weather today. Very nice. Nice outside, so we will give it a few more seconds. In the meantime, I can tell you a little bit more what's in for you in this webinar today. Founding a company in Switzerland is not an easy task. There are a lot of questions around which legal form you should choose. There are financial and tax implications that you should think about. And so all of these questions are very complex in nature, and that's why we are hosting this webinar tonight for you. This webinar is hosted by Uwe Scheunemann. He's senior consultant at Foundera. And my name is Cyril Mucklin. I'm part of the Foundera team, and I'm your host tonight. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules. This webinar is being recorded and can be rewatched later on our YouTube channel. As you can see in your Teams application, you have the possibility to ask questions either directly or in the chat. Please feel free to use that actively so you can get most out of this webinar for you. We are happy to pick them up and answer them throughout the webinar for you. All right, I think now it's time to start, and I hand it over to Uwe.
Thank you, Cyril. I hope everybody can hear me well. Welcome to the webinar of Foundera, talking about how to set up your company in Switzerland. My screen should be shared, right, Cyril?
Yep.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so let's go. How to set up your company in Switzerland. It's like a practical guide. I'm not a theorist, so I'm a practical consultant, been in the industry for a lot of years. So maybe this is a good time to introduce myself. My name is Uwe Scheunemann. I'm a resident of Zurich. I'm a senior consultant with Foundera since March of last year. I have an insurance and financial planning background, 14 years in the industry, having worked for over 8 years for a big Swiss insurer. And later on, also as an independent consultant. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I have my own company, Progressive Finance in Zurich. So I'm not just telling what's in the books. I can also tell you from the very practical side how it is to run a company in Switzerland. And I'm giving advisory for Foundera and also for my own company in German, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So today we stick to English. If there's questions, of course, very welcome to put in the chat. Cyril will help me to, if there are questions pop up in the chat, feel free to write them in. And Cyril will raise a hand, so I will be noticing, of course, when we go further. Okay, so Switzerland in comparison. For those living in Switzerland, which I think majority of the webinar attendees is, Switzerland ranks top 5 in all relevant surveys. It's a very political stable country. We're backed up by direct democracy, which allows us to correct all the errors done by politicians in the parliament in Bern, which is sometimes necessary in inverted commas. But of course, Swiss politics also mean we have a so-called laissez-faire strategy, like a liberal model of economy and an initiative, grassroots-driven economy, which is also one of the strength pillars of Swiss economy. We have a very low corruption and, of course, a very strong national currency maintained by an independent national bank in Bern. Of course, also when it comes to entrepreneurship, Switzerland is full of skilled workers and has top-ranking universities worldwide with ETH Zurich and EPFN Lausanne. And Moreover, generally speaking, it's a very secure country. You can walk alone as a woman during night. And of course, the high living standards speak for itself. This is also mentioned international. I'm here putting here the Economic Freedom Index, which is, it's also released by the World Bank. I hope it's readable. I highlighted Switzerland. It's about the second rank after Singapore. This is the ranking of 2024, so the actual one. Whereas in the category of tax burden and government spending, Switzerland even surpasses Singapore, which means that the taxation for companies and individuals in Switzerland is more competitive than in Singapore. Same as government spending, which means that the Swiss government is not spending too much of its income on social security or other crazy objects. It's like that. It's a very healthy balance sheet of the gross domestic product. All right. Well, this is now the macroeconomics coming down. Break it down. Founding is a challenge. No matter if you're a natural born Swiss or if you came to the country later on, it's founding here is also an administrative and entrepreneurial task and challenge. It's pretty difficult to keep an overview. And what we do at Foundera is we help to settle the foundation as easy as possible. We are kind of a signpost to help individuals through that labyrinth to set up something and avoid all the mistakes you could do, because there are a lot of mistakes you could actually do on the way. So this is what we help people to do to prevent. So I simply start an Einzelfirma, a sole proprietorship. Guess what? Which means if you just say, I want to be self-employed no matter what, the easiest way, the lowest barrier is to start a sole proprietorship or Einzelfirma in German. And this is the thing that you don't need any capital to start with. You can just register. We help you to register the Einzelfirma in the commercial register. And pretty important for those being employed in Switzerland, when you need money to found your company, you could cash out your pension fund and the Pillar 3A, which is one of the 5 reasons to cash out both pension fund and Pillar 3A. When you make your self-employed, when you're not connected anymore to any pension fund, you can withdraw that money and use it for your own business. Advantage bookkeeping is pretty simple. You can do it with an Excel, very simple if you want. And also taxation, it's actually simple in administrative terms. The registration at the commercial register is voluntary till a revenue of 100K francs. However, there's a lot of advantages doing it. Also, when it comes, I'll give you one example, when it comes to customs, because you need a so-called CHE number or a UID, which is a company identification number, which also works internationally. So this is what you get when you register the commercial register, and helps you with import and export goods and services. It is a real self-employment. So if you set up your sole proprietorship, you're not employed of your own GmbH or a Swiss private limited company, because you're standing on your own, and you are have this chance to, as I said, to finance also things with money collected beforehand in the second and third pillar. There's some specialty on the so-called freie Berufe, the so-called classical freelancers that would apply to architects, doctors, auditors. They don't have to register. They have kind of a special thing. But as in statistics, the number of those is not too high. I would just mention it here, not go deeper inside. But of course the disadvantages strike too. So setting up the Einzelfirma is easy, but on the other hand, the downside is that you have an unlimited liability, including your private assets. So if your business goes wrong, then banks or whoever chases you gets into your private assets, your bank account. And of course, the commercial register is a public register. So you will be published also with your home address, because the Einzelfirma is normally domicilized at your home address, unless you have a so-called CO address, which we could also have to organize if you don't want your private address published in a public register, because the commercial register is, of course, public to everybody, so everybody can look it up. Very important for those coming to Switzerland, you need a residence in Switzerland to set up your business. It's not that you can just say, I'm from France, I'm from Italy, Germany. I want to found this company in Switzerland while staying and living in the neighboring countries. This is not working, not in the Einzelfirma. So just to note, because we have that from time to time, that people phone us from somewhere else just to say, I need a Swiss company while I reside in my country. Not really possible. And yeah. Downside, no partners. So if you have like-minded partners and you say, hey, let's fund something together, this is not possible with the sole proprietorship. And of course, the reputation when it comes to taking a loan at banks is pretty low. So this is what people find out. They set up their own business and then they say, I need money. So they will rush to a bank, and the bank says, well, is there any securities? And if you don't have securities, it's not that easy to get a loan. You have a certain tax progression. I will talk about typical financial planner. We'll talk about taxes later on, especially taxes on the Swiss private limited company. Here in the Einzelfirma, it's like this, that, well, what you make in earnings, you have to add to your income, which means if you're partly employed, partly self-employed, it will all be counted together and put in your tax declaration. And that's why also a Einzelfirma is pretty unattractive to investors. So if you say, I have a business idea, but I need people to fund me, I need investors, then don't go for the sole proprietorship, because it's not really working. And last but not least, the company name must contain your last name, which sometimes leads to very funny constructions, because people have their last names, have to use them. My examples would be here, like if you're in IT and you have a very Swiss last name with a lot of umlaute, then it could be Global IT Solutions Rüdisöli. And now think of when you deal with American clients in California, then maybe it's not the best way to where they have to pronounce those very fiercey umlaute, right? Same would be true to Italian-speaking Switzerland. If you're domicilized in Ticino, a southern canton, and your last name is Rossi, which is one of the most spread names in Ticino, and you have a winery, you want to import wines, and your last name is Rossi, then it would be Importazione di Vini Rossi, which would see if you also want to offer white wine, then maybe it's not the best idea to do it like this, because it's misunderstanding, right? And a lot of people also make a lot of their mind up a good names, so that stops also with the sole proprietorship. Okay, how about the Swiss PLC, or the GmbH, as we say in German? It's the most popular legal form, and it's because it's pretty easy to set it up when you know how to do it. The vast key point is that you have a limitation of the liability on the share capital. So the minimum requirement is 20,000 francs. And if it goes wrong, so the 20K are gone, but you're still there, including your private assets. There is a, in brackets, I'd say the director's liability, which come later to that. So it's not that you say, I can do what I want in the PLC and the money is kept, but there are some exceptions for the rule. The PLC, the Swiss PLC, has a lot of flexibility advantages when it comes to private residence and companies' headquarters. So, which is pretty easy if you say, especially if you're in services, that you say, okay, I'm domicilizing the company in a canton which has less taxes than, for example, Geneva or Zurich. Then you could do a so-called geo arbitrage. I will show a map later on. And also, of course, bookkeeping flexibility, loss carry forwards for the next fiscal year. You could do allocation of profits. You could decide with your earnings what you cash out in salaries, what you cash out in dividends, and so on. You can have business partners as much as you want, actually. And of course, you could, from the example from last sheet, you could have a free choice of your company name. I would always have a look at the intellectual property rights, because if you make sneakers and you name yourself Nike, maybe it's not a good idea. So keep also in mind that brands, there are brand issues. It's also good to research. We at Foundera have partners to help you with that research on the IPR, because this is very important right at the beginning. Otherwise, you start with the wrong name, and until you get a letter from a very, very expensive lawyer, and then you have a fierce problem. Reputation is better than the sole proprietorship, because it would open your business up to investors. And in contrast to the sole proprietorship, for the PLC, one shareholder, one director has to have its residency in Switzerland. The others can also reside outside the country. So it's very easy. For example, if you have 3 business partners, only one has to have his residence in Switzerland. The others could live somewhere else. So it's pretty good to also set up a company if you have partners, they are not living in Switzerland. Downsides, of course, there are downsides. You have more complex bookkeeping, double standard in the bookkeeping, more costs. You don't have anonymity. Also here, you would apply, or you would appear in the commercial register. And also, when it comes to the directors, you have a prohibition of competition. So you cannot run a company which is, I don't know, selling coffee, and you're also director of another PLC, which is also selling coffee. That would counterfeit the rule of competition. This will only be possible in the corporation, so that's another legal form. Once you have a PLC and you want to convert that one into a corporation, then it's a big job also for auditing and bookkeeping. So sometimes it's always better, depends the situation, to set up a corporation right from the start and not setting up a PLC. Depends very on your unique business case. And you have double taxation, which I will speak about in a minute. I mentioned the 20K minimum share capital. Sometimes this is a hurdle. People say like, yeah, but I don't have this 20K. That's why I'm going for a sole proprietorship. Well, it's not always the best decision, because if you mind right, also in the sole proprietorship, you may have a need of money, which means think wise if you say I'm ready starting the PLC right from scratch when having the 20K savings, while starting a sole proprietorship and later on recognizing, oh, we need a lot of money. That could be a mistake here. Good. Duties of directors, I mentioned the exception. So the directors of a Swiss PLC, of course, have some obligations which they cannot delegate to other people. So the duty of bookkeeping is clear. It's the management board has some non-transferable duties, which also they are liable personal. So if you set up a company with malicious intent and say, okay, I invested a 20K, if they're gone, I'm fine. It's not like this. So you have as a member of the board, you have a certain personal liability, which is defined in Swiss law. And when it comes to spending money and you run into so-called over-indebtedness, one of my favorite English words now, then there's a clear role play what to do. By law, actually, you have to have an interim balance sheet. You have to have an auditor. In certain circumstances, you can just say revoke an auditor. You could say, I don't need an external audit. Here, in that case, you would need one. And then, of course, the court is also notified of this problem here. Mismanagement, by the way, also touches Swiss criminal code. So the failure of keeping accounts is something also which is clearly prosecuted by Swiss authorities. So if you start a company, then do it right and don't improvise, as we say. As I'm saying, I'm from the practical side. I will talk about leasing a bit here because this is a funny fact I sometimes realize with clients that now you say, hey, when it comes to having a car, that people say, hey, if I found my company, I'm deduct the leasing costs from as operating expenses. So, which means, hooray, I'm leasing my Lambo and this goes on company expense, right? Your opponent would be the tax office here because depending what you do, might work, but also might not work. The tax office clearly checks very easy. If you say, if you're, for example, running a kiosk like a vendor's point, and you have this one, then maybe the Lamborghini is not the best car to transport goods here. It's actually unpractical. So as a company car, that would be not recognized by the tax authorities. So it would be listed as a private car. So there must be a clear connection to your business and business case. And that's why a sports car might not always be recognized by the tax authority as the company car. Very important. You could, of course, use this then as a private vehicle. You could try to make the kilometer allowance. In Swiss taxes, we have a kilometer allowance of 70 Rappen per kilometer. But let's face it, that's never enough to justify the high maintenance costs of a Lamborghini. So this is something which is a bit of a stereotype, but I would really wisely think of if you need a status symbol here for your business. Leasing also has advantages when it comes to certain machines and like issues. Then leasing could be a thing that, for example, if you're a startup in the industry, for when it comes, for example, to 3D printers, is something which is often leased because you could use little capital to lease such a machine, while as the other capital can be allocated somewhere else. And this is something which is important for leasing. When it comes to cars, by the way, depreciation is a thing that maybe you know already. I put this as a popular question. How much is the depreciation of a new car in the first year? Most people have, well, they find out by the tax declaration maybe, or when they resell the car, probably. If you just turn the key of the new car, then you make your 25% are gone. So a new car is basically speaking a very bad investment because you lose guaranteed 25% in the first year. And with leasing, you would surpass that actually. Also, you would have technological advances, for example, when it comes to electric cars, that you say, hey, I want to have like a state-of-the-art technical car, less running costs in fuel, just electricity, then car leasing could be a thing. Also, when it comes to lorries and something, now we have, with the technology, we have, for example, you could lease a lorry as electric car. As I said, beside cars, for some equipment, it could be a thing. I mentioned the 3D printer, but also in medical, think of medical like gastroenterology. When you have all this diagnostic stuff, it's very expensive. So a lot of professions of the medical sector, they lease stuff. Disadvantages, well, you cannot cancel the leasing contract. Or if you do, there's a penalty by the leasing bank, and there's a fixed plan and payment. So think wise before signing any leasing, because it's not that easy to rush out of the contract, which is same true for private leasing. You have to take out the full comprehensive insurance for machines and cars, so expensive insurance costs. And you cannot sell if the business is not doing well. You cannot sell the car on a machine. It's like not yours because it belongs to the bank. So the solution would be, of course, do a final or like or at least provisionary calculation, real costs after taxes, if a leasing or a buy would be the better option. This is something which you could work out with a trustee or a consultant in this field. Okay. Not to spend too much time on the leasing, that was just a little excerpt. What is very important when it comes to company foundations and running a company is taxation. And as I mentioned before, the GmbH, the Swiss PLC, has a double taxation problem in inverted commas, but it is something to be mentioned. I give you a very clear example here. Seeing that, for example, if you make earnings in a city of Zurich of 200,000 francs, then your profit tax on the continental city and federal level is 48,000, more than 48,000 francs, whereas the federal tax rate in Switzerland is fixed here. So it is almost 1/4 of that sum is your earnings tax or profit tax on the company level. And on top, you have a capital tax, same as the wealth tax for private individuals would be capital tax on companies, which is very low in contrast. But just to see how this works, for double taxation, you have always to see the company level on top and then the private level below. And very unique and something as I call a tax dinosaur is our church tax, except the mentioned cantons. For example, here in Zurich, we have church tax. As a company, you cannot exit church like a private person. So you would have to pay this. It's not that much, but of course, if you make a lot of revenue, it plays a role. Because as soon as you have earnings, it is automatically charged with church tax here. Cannot be released. As mentioned at the beginning, in Switzerland, you could do a so-called geo arbitrage, which means as our federal state has a lot of regional or cantonal tax rules, you could domicilize your PLC somewhere, which you have lower earnings tax. We have, from the media, from talking to people, of course, we have the classical low tax cantons. Most people would mention Zug and Schwyz here, or even Nidwalden. However, it depends, as always. It's not just a cantonal level you have to watch. I brought a list here with all the profit tax rates in Switzerland by canton. So top leading is Bern, then is Zurich, and then it's Ticino. And on the low end, yes, you find Zug, so tax haven, Zug. And you would find Canton Schwyz in the midfield. However, there are places in Canton Schwyz which run, or you pay less taxes than in Canton Zug. Not many people know that, because the municipal tax also of the local municipality also plays a role here. And some villages in Canton Schwyz are cheaper than Canton Zug. So it is, if you do geo arbitrage, it's good to talk to someone who knows how to calculate these things. And of course, this depends also on your expected earnings for the first 3 years. Also to mention, we have Switzerland as international contracts. The OECD is like aiming at Switzerland for these so-called minimum taxation standards and corporate, and these 15% which are given. You see the Swiss average here. This is something which, of course, will play a role in future, because then a tax discount would be more difficult for some cantons here. So there will be alterations coming in future. Double taxation now, second level, personal level. So when you cash out or you want to pay out yourself a salary from your own company, then of course this salary is taxed as income. Plus you have the social deductions, the OASI, you have the pension fund and so on. And so it is a calculation always whether to, or which part of the earnings is paid out as salary versus paid out as a dividend, because dividends in Switzerland are taxed with privilege. For example, Canton Zurich taxes dividends only with 50%, so 50% of your dividends are tax-free. On the federal level, it's 70% taxed. So the double taxation is true, but there is, of course, a discount on the dividend side. So when it comes to spread earnings, it is very important to do the math here. Yes, and we have a double taxation on capital tax. Also, if you're a private person and you have your share capital, it has to be in the wealth tax again. So double taxation also on the private level. It's called Vermögenssteuer in German. Maybe you've heard about this. Wealth tax. Switzerland is among Norway and Spain, one of the countries in Europe who also have a wealth tax. Nevertheless, the Swiss PLC is a very suitable and good solution to setting up a serious business. So it's 20,000 francs, which is, for example, way lower than in Germany. There's 25,000 euros to set up a company in Switzerland. And the process is pretty quick, pretty lean. So it's a good way to start a business with a very popular Swiss PLC. Okay, slowly coming to the end. Also time-wise, I give you a very nice overview here on summary advantages and disadvantages. The sole proprietorship, the Einzelfirma I mentioned, the Swiss PLC I was talking mainly today about, and of course the corporation, which means what do I need for? You see the potential growth, the liability, the attractivity for investors, co-founding with others, the reputation and taxation. Sometimes the choice would be like in between the Swiss PLC and the Swiss corporation. And you see the Swiss corporation needs 100K, so it's a lot of more capital to be brought in. Whereas on the other side, you have a high reputation and you can also stay anonymous as a shareholder with a AG, Swiss corporation here. So this is a nice overview to share with. Okay, so slowly coming to the end. Now I would turn tables. Where are you at your journey? I mean, the concept of a company is something which we don't deliver. This is something you have to make up yourself your mind what you want to start your business in. If you are starting the founding process, so where the arrow is, this is exactly the moment to contact us to say, like, for the initial free and without commitment initial consultancy, we would help you here to set up with legal advice and guide you through the foundation process, and on top also help you the first 2 years growing your business here, because we just don't release our customers after the foundations. Some competitors in Switzerland do that. We don't. We phone you frequently, and we would, of course, make sure that you don't do mistakes in the growth process. Which would lead us to the founding journey. So I made a little mix here of German and English. The idea, what you have to bring is the business idea. What we help with is the formal foundation when you are prepared in a certain status. And we would help you with administrative tasks and then, of course, further topics. So we would guide you through this process easily. We are very transparent when it comes to pricing. So we have lump sum prices, so you don't have bad surprises. When it comes to foundation for a PLC, it's 699 francs, including the notary fees already, which for Zurich would run about 300 already. So you see, it's a very, very good and useful offer. Plus, we would help you with registry changes later on and help with contracts you would need. If you need labor contracts, if you want to have a privacy policy statement for your website, or you need a shareholder agreement, general conditions, this is something which you would need. When it comes, for example, to an online shop, then we could help with that upon request. We have legal partners and can help you very, very quick, and due to our digitalized processes, we are pretty fast also here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wish you a very nice evening, and yeah, talk to you soon, and take care. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.